class, it's Miss Roberts here, and today we're going to talk about conclusions. And if you watched the introductions video earlier, I gave a little bit of a hint of what I'm going to talk about today. I talked about the bookends analogy, where the introduction serves as a way to begin the speech, introduce the main ideas, and then the conclusion will wrap up the speech and provide a place for you to give your final statements. Let's begin. Today, I'm going to talk about the functions of a speech conclusion and talk about the methods for concluding a speech. Now, like I just said, the speech summarizes your central idea or thesis statement. So one tip that I give students is to take a look at your thesis statement and then just reword it, use maybe a couple of different transitions to conclude. So the thesis statement, central idea, mirrors the recap of the conclusion. So for example, if I gave my berry salad example, I can say, today we discussed how to make a berry salad, the ingredients you will need to make it, how to prepare, and how to serve the berry salad. You're also using it to provide closure. You're going to do this in both verbal and nonverbal ways. For example, you can use transitions such as to sum up, we just discussed, to summarize, and summation. And you'll also use the inflection of the tone of your voice. Your voice might get a little bit softer, a little bit slower, a little bit more muted, a little bit more deliberate to indicate the ending of the speech. You can also motivate the audience to respond, either raising a hand and such. In formats such as the Monroe's motivated sequence, the conclusion is also called the action, and that particular setup requires that the audience thinks about what actions they can take to solve the issues and problems that the presenter or the speaker presents. So we're going to talk about that in other chapters, but that's a really good example of how the conclusion is one of the most important parts of the speech. It's not just recap. It invokes response or has the audience to think about how would they respond or act based on what the speaker proposes. So again, how to signal the end of your speech. You have verbal cues, transitional phrases such as finally, for my last point. But don't give permission to tune out. You can also use a question, have them raise their hands, or speak a little bit more loudly or more enthusiastically to help maintain the audience's attention that we worked so hard to get in the introduction. So usually there is a pause, and it's something that you might naturally do, have a pause in between the body and conclusion sections. You might slow down your speech rate. Some people might move out from the podium if that applies to you. And they use a falling vocal inflection. See how my voice dips and falls, slows down, gets a little deeper. That's one example of a falling inflection. So like I said before, any of the methods that we use in the introduction can also work for your final thoughts in your conclusion. Sometimes people use quotations at the very end or fact and stats as well. So like I talked about in the introduction video, say if you begin an anecdote or story at the very beginning, you can end the anecdote story at the conclusion, almost like bookends. Answer the question that you presented at the very beginning. So say if you ask a question as an attention getter, you can answer that question at the very end. Remind the audience of the fact or stat that you presented to bring it around, and nicely cinch the speech together. You can also use the conclusion to make appeals to emotion. So say if I want to talk about animal adoption, I can say something to the effect of, ask yourself, if you can save the life of an animal, would you? If the answer is yes, then what's stopping you now? Adopt, don't shop today. So do you see how I use those words? Adopt, don't shop. What would you do? Questions. Okay, here's how you can act. Saving an animal. I'm using those words and those images and those emotions not only to make my audience act, but to have them think about those actions and to keep their attention throughout the speech. Okay. So that's it for the conclusion. You can also ask me any more questions, and also we're going to have supplemental assignments to reinforce introductions, conclusions, and how to put a speech together. Also make reference to the outline that I'm going to give you for each speech. And there you go. There's your conclusion. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you soon. Bye.